Welcome to Sex is Medicine. I am your host, Devi Erickson, here with you once again for another juicy, enriching, and delicious episode of Sex is Medicine, your number one resource for holistic sex education on the internet. Just also want to shout out once again that we are the 2021 ASECT Live Web Series Award winners. That's a big freaking deal, and I'm going to be screaming that until shouting it from the mountaintops until I get tired of it. So you're just going to have to get used to listening to it. Celebrate with me. Today, I am very excited about this topic. I have a wonderful guest, Irene Fehr. And we are going to be talking about finding your authentic libido in long-term relationships. And this is such a huge issue for so many people. It's very, very normal that couples may grow apart sexually in relationship. Very often it's women stop wanting to have sex. I also hear about men not wanting to have sex. And it can be the end of your relationship if it goes on for a long period of time and you guys aren't able to find a resolution. Also, a lot of people think it's only happening to them, which is not true. And a lot of people think that they're broken because all of a sudden they had this intense, passionate sexual relationship. And now all of a sudden they're having sex like once a month or once every 6 months in some cases. So Irene is going to be our voice of wisdom and reason and help us decode and demystify and understand what's going on when we lose interest in sexual intimacy with our long-term partner. So thank you. Welcome, Irene. It is so great to have you. Thanks for reaching out to be a guest on our show and offer all of your wisdom to our audience.
Thank you for having me.
So to get started, because as I've said, I don't like reading people's bios. I would much prefer to hear it straight from the horse's mouth. So tell us a little bit about who you are and where you come from and why this, why sex and intimacy coaching?
Well, I'll actually start with that question first. So why sex and intimacy coaching is because I was in the place where so many of my clients are today. And that place is I ended up losing my libido. And ended up in a sexless marriage when I was married. This was now 15 years ago. And I was so lost, so confused. It was devastating for me. I was heartbroken. And it resulted in a divorce. Mm-hmm. We didn't know how to face this together. We didn't know how to talk about this. And it was, like I said, devastating. Mm-hmm. And this journey led me first to shut down, to go into deep depression, to disconnect from my own body, to stop dating, to think that I was really broken sexually, that sex was not something that was for me, that was really available for me to enjoy. And after those about 4 or 5 years of shutdown, I had literally a spiritual awakening, which looked like an emotional breakdown.
Mm-hmm. It's funny how that happens. Funny how those happen.
I love how Brené Brown talks about it. It's like, yeah, I had a nervous breakdown / spiritual awakening. And I started doing my own work, working with a sex coach, trying to understand my sexuality. And during that experience, I realized, wow, there's nothing broken with me. Yeah. There's nothing wrong or broken with me sexually as a woman. There's actually nothing wrong with us as a couple. There was certainly nothing wrong with our love or connection, but that we didn't know how to deal with some of the very normal, natural challenges that couples face. Mm-hmm. And my own experience understanding this, but more importantly, feeling and reawakening my own sexual desire. And connecting to pleasure, connecting to my own sensuality, connecting to that energy inside of me. I remember there's a moment where I just knew that I needed to do this work because I knew I wasn't the only one. Because as soon as I started opening up about my own journey, women literally crawled out of the woodwork telling me this is what was happening for them as well. The same challenges and even the same words that they were using. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm broken. What's wrong with me? Look at my husband. He wants to have sex. Why can't I? And so, and again, thinking that we were broken, that something was wrong with us, that we're supposed to be this way and we're not, and our bodies are rebelling or are really not working for us. And again, what I learned through my own sexual journey, I wanted to scream it off of the top of the rooftops. It's like, women, we're not broken. Here's what we need to understand. And I really also wanted to educate couples and change the trajectory of couples relationships. You know, I was in this place where we were madly in love with each other. We were creating these dreams for the future. And pretty much out of the gate for my relationship, my libido started to tank. And there went our dreams. There went, again, being in love with each other. And the connection deteriorated into silence and pain
And resentment.
Yeah, and I wanted to change this for other couples.
So
This is what
that's what you do now. Yes. Awesome. Sorry to interrupt there. And so, yes, I was actually going to say, like, I love how your work now was birthed out of your own healing journey. To me, that is so important, right? And in order to like feel safe and to trust the practitioner, it's so helpful for me to know that you've done this yourself, that what you're teaching me has been effective in your own life. And it's something that you practice and you utilize. It's not just something you read in a book or got at university and were able to like check all the right boxes on your multiple choice test. This is actually embodied wisdom that you're sharing. And so I celebrate that and applaud that. So yeah, so you talk about 4 myths that kill women's libidos and make us feel sexually broken when we're not. What are these 4 myths? Because that is so important.
Well, again, using my own relationship as an example, the first myth is all about what happens in the beginning and how we think sexual desire should be for women. So think of the beginning stages of a relationship. What happens? Well, there is certainly sexual attraction and excitement. And as you get to know each other and really like each other, there's that phase where you can't keep your hands off each other. You can't stop thinking about each other. It's this crazy time, right? Like when you're not sleeping, you're just thinking about each other, yet you have this immense amount of energy. And during those beginning stages, again, when you're dating, when you're spending a lot of time together, what happens is that men's and women's sexual desire looks the same. It looks on all the time. It looks spontaneous. Like, you know, couples will go to the movies to watch a movie, but what they're doing is they're making out all the time and rushing home to go have sex. They go on a road trip, but they stop every 10 miles to make out or have sex. Yeah. They're spending a weekend together, and what are they doing? They have sex 3-5 times a day. It looks like both are on the same page and are so alive with each other and excited and passionate. But what happens over time with a relationship is that it deepens. And in addition to the fun and the excitement, you start to add in responsibilities. And you start to also have moments of disagreement, which breed resentment and feeling like you're not really heard or really understood. And something then starts to shift, usually in the woman's libido. Her libido starts to go down. That's what happened for me. I first lost lubrication, so I couldn't really lubricate naturally. I went to the doctor. I was told, oh, just use lube, as if lube is the solution to arousal and feeling connected and all of that. But then naturally, by continuing to use lube, but changing nothing else, sex started to get very painful because I wasn't getting aroused. And then my libido tanked completely. So I thought it was purely sexual, but again, I wasn't aware that so many things were changing in the relationship. We weren't just making out spontaneously. My boyfriend, who turned husband, was spending time at work, and we would connect only in the evenings, and the texts, "I'm thinking about you," stopped. And the passionate kisses when he came home stopped. And all these other things, like I said, resentments and disagreements started to pile up. And so the first myth, again, is thinking that the way it was in the beginning is the way it's going to be long-term. And we have to understand that what's happening in the beginning has all the important nutrients that we need for libido. And that in the beginning, they're there because the hormones are there, the excitement, the newness, the sexual attraction. And they're so strong, because our whole species, the survival of our species, depends on them. for procreation, right? We hook up with each other because of these hormones, not only because of the hormones, but that's a big part of it. And we're meant to hook up and make a baby, whether or not we do that. But once the hormones wane, we have to intentionally add practices that keep these activities, or the way I think about them as nutrients, alive. And the 4 nutrients are, first of all, space for yourself, and not just merging into the relationship and losing yourself, right? Doing the activities that you love, taking time to be silent, to relax, to indulge in pleasure, be it a massage or just going out in nature or whatever works for you. The second nutrient is emotional connection. Again, couples who don't talk to each other during the day, and once they have children are just kind of passing each other in the hallway, talking about practicalities, they start to lose that connection. But that's necessary. That's what had her, the woman, feel so excited for sex in the beginning. The third nutrient is touch, goalless touch. Again, those makeout sessions in the theater, those spontaneous moments in the car. Women specifically, we need that touch that's not linked to having sex right away. Yes. We need to not be buttered up for sex. We need to just enjoy that touch just because it feels good, because the connection is electrifying and enlivening. And again, that's one of the things that goes away past that initial stage. It becomes linked to, honey, let's go have sex. Okay, let's spend the first 45 minutes buttering you up or getting you ready. Yeah. Right. And that becomes then a chore and a duty. Oh, I have to enjoy it because I got to get turned on.
Mm-hmm. Pressure to perform.
Pressure to perform, to show up. Look, he's spending all this time on my body. I need to show him progress. I need to show him results.
But also, if the only time we're being touched, again, is in the context of sex, performing, right? And then the rest of the time, it's like a touch desert. It's any time our nervous systems kind of get primed. Anytime my partner's touching me, it's because they want sex, as opposed to touch simply being an expression of love without an agenda.
Exactly. Or even an expression of sexuality without an agenda, right? Yes. Without trying to get to penetration or to orgasm, but being sexual and expressing sexual feelings, sexual desire without, again, going somewhere.
Yes.
And this is one of these incredibly, like, just essential nutrients really for women's libido, is to have that space, to have the safety. And I love that you mentioned the nervous system, because in my work, I work with the nervous system. Mm-hmm. I am a somatic experiencing practitioner, where we work with the nervous system to help people feel safe in their own bodies, mm-hmm. and feel relaxed and be able to live life with more resilience. And that what happens to the nervous system, like you said, when you wire touch with sex, is that women start to react like they bristle when they're being touched, because there's then the cascade of, well, that means that he wants sex. That means I have to kind of get in the mood and perform. And so it creates this vicious downward spiral of the body shutting down, of the nervous system being always on edge, on alert. What's going to happen to me? What's next? Mm-hmm. And that is a libido killer. Just that in itself. I mean, we can start the conversation. Just kind of nailed the big piece. This negative downward spiral is a libido killer.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I also want to interject here, because I'm speaking from my own experience, but also when I have an experience of something, I get curious. I'm like, oh, does this happen for other people too? Or what is this thing I'm experiencing? So then I do some research on it. I'm like, oh, look, this is a thing. This is actually a thing. And so I know for a lot of people who identify as women, cisgender women we're speaking of specifically, who have a history of sexual trauma and sexual abuse, so that touch we've had to suffer and tolerate unwanted touch for so much of our lives. And I know that there was this phenomena that I read about in long-term relationships, which was because of the safety of that relationship, the nervous system felt safe enough to begin releasing that trauma. And so it may manifest in these long-term relationships as all of a sudden having an aversion to touch, because what's really arising is all of the times we've tolerated touch and not been able to say no or use our voice and advocate. Because of the safe container of the relationship, we can now be honest about what we're experiencing and really honor the messages of our body. And so pull away or withdraw from touch, because whether or not there's a demand, because of our history, we may perceive a demand. So that's been an important information for me and many other women to know. And then also important, I think, contribution to this conversation, because that can be really scary and alarming for people when you're in this loving relationship and you've previously enjoyed touch, and then all of a sudden touch becomes a trigger, and not understanding why and what's underneath that.
And I want to also go a step further to say that it doesn't take sexual abuse or sexual trauma to experience that. That most women have experienced some level of sexual trauma, because most women's, especially first experience, but also many experiences, sexual experiences, are usually too early, meaning she's not really aroused, she's not really in it, she's not really present. They're too early, too fast, and too much.
And potentially coerced.
And potential coerced. But again, I'm also like, there's abuse, there's coercion, but then there is very loving, very safe relationships, very loving, patient partners, well-meaning partners. But generally, and this is part of the myths that I talk about, is that most women have sex on a man's timeline.
Yes, thank you.
And that actually creates the trauma. Again, it's too early, too much, too fast for her and her body.
Yes.
So when that's happening, what the response is, the body shuts down and, okay, let's just get it over with. I'll pretend I like it. I'll like some things, but again, I'll pretend for most things. Let's get it over with. It pleases him, quote unquote, right? It takes care of him to see me pleased. And what happens inside for so many women, and this was certainly part of my experience, is that I start thinking, well, sex is just not for me. I'm just not meant to enjoy it.
Yeah, it's a chore, right? And yeah, doing anything out of duty and obligation. And again, the way we're wired as cisgender women is our sex is performative for our partner. And if we don't put out, then he's going to leave us for someone else. So we override our own body's wisdom in order to maintain the relationship. So I love that piece there. And again, in like understanding why our libidos may be shut down. Like if you've been tolerating sex for a long time, that's totally going to shut down your libido.
And also, here's the thing. When the libido shuts down under those circumstances, it means it's a healthy libido.
Yes, thank you.
Right? Our libido is meant to shut down when it's not honored, right? When our bodies are not honored to and allowed to go at their pace, when we're not getting the nutrients that we need, then the body will shut down saying, hey, I don't want any of this. This is not right. And so when we think that we're broken because our bodies are, not responding or not behaving, the truth is that they're actually behaving and they're protecting us and they're acting again in the most healthy way. Yeah. And it's so important for women to understand. Again, so many women come to my practice, women such as myself, and they think there's something wrong with them. I should be, like the other myths that I talk about, I should be superwoman who can do it all. I should be able to crawl into bed exhausted and have sex with my partner. No, if your body is shutting down when you're exhausted, it's because you're exhausted and you need to sleep, you need to rest, you need to be pampered, you need to be fed, nourished, not put out your sexual energy. You need to fill it up and feed your body. And if your body is shutting down because also there's pain during sex, or you don't have lubrication, that's the body saying, hey, I need more than this. This is not right. I'm missing the essential nutrients, which is usually touch and emotional connection. And again, we need to listen to our bodies and really listen to the cues rather than superimpose these ideas or myths, because we're looking at the man who's having an easy time with his spontaneous libido. Here we are with our responsive libido responding to all these negative contexts. And we're not listening to ourselves. We're comparing ourselves to the man who it looks like he has libido and I have less of a libido. Well, that doesn't work that way. There's no standard and a lesser version. There is different kinds of libidos. And again, our body will tell us what we need.
I love that you keep pointing out exactly how so much of the way we in the Western society view sexuality is patterned after male sexual response and sexual desire, even like, coming in 2 minutes. Well, yeah, like ejaculatory orgasms for men happen in 2 minutes, and yet it can take 20 to 40 minutes before our erectile tissue engorges enough for us to have vaginal orgasms, kind of thing, right? So every concept about sex in the Western society is modeled after the male ejaculatory orgasm, not even the male multiple non-ejaculatory orgasm, just the male climactic ejaculatory orgasm is what our sexual views are patterned after. So I love how you keep bringing it back to that, because it's so important for us to reclaim and honor and allow that our bodies are built differently, they function differently, and they're equally valid.
Absolutely. And also what's so frustrating is so much of therapy and sex therapy is still based on these outdated models. I recently ran into this survey that's online of the sex therapist website, and it's based on a questionnaire that was developed in 1996. And the kind of questions that it asks to gauge a woman's libido is, do you spontaneously think about sex during the day? That's more spontaneous sexual desire. Do you have sexual fantasies about your partner? Not everyone has sexual fantasies. That's not a prerequisite to being sexual. And do you, when you see your partner, do you want to have sex with them? Again, not an automatic. There's no automatic connection between seeing your partner and wanting sex for women.
Yeah, it depends on
the day. Your partner. Depends on the day. What's your connection? What's your connection to them? What's your connection to yourself? What is going on in your life? Have you been touched? All of that. And so again, we're superimposing these very outdated, very cis male based standards of sexuality as sexuality onto women. And women will absolutely pretty much always come out as broken. I actually took the survey that I just mentioned, and I came out as broken. I came out as having low libido.
So I'd love to tease out these concepts, because I haven't heard this before, the difference between spontaneous libido and responsive libido. Could you dig into each of those a little bit more?
I would love to. And the source of this is Emily Nagoski in her book, Come As You Are, which I absolutely love. And I'll summarize it in my own words as well and kind of add my own flavor to it. So spontaneous sexual desire is what most men experience under kind of normal conditions. And what happens is that there's a very almost like spontaneous appearance of sexual desire. And what that looks like is that there's some kind of stimulus happening, like they think of their partner, or they see their partner naked coming out of the shower, or they drive down the highway and see a billboard of a model in a bikini. And from there is a desire, a sexual desire that arises, like, oh, I want to have sex. And from there, the next step is to have a physical reaction, to have physical arousal. And that can happen within 20 seconds to a couple of minutes. And there they are, not only wanting to have sex, but they're ready to have penetration sex. They can have oral sex. They can have whatever they want because a man will be fully aroused during that time, fully hard. And that all happens within literally, like, it can be 2 minutes, but that's like on a conservative end. It could be a couple of seconds, and he's ready. And that's how how sexual desire is presented in magazines and literature. Again, it's like you have sexual fantasies. You think about sex all the time. That's more spontaneous sexual desire.
And so, can I pause you there to dig into that? Because we talked about in the beginning, when the relationship is new, there's the chemical support for spontaneous sexual desire for people with vulvas and vaginas. Because that new relationship energy, all of that, all those hormones that are coursing through our bodies give that support for both people having that kind of spontaneous sexual desire. But then as those hormones start to decrease, it changes for people for women.
Yes. And also to add that those hormones drive us to do all the right things, like think about each other and reach out to each other, right? And do special things like getting that impromptu bouquet of flowers, or reaching over and touching like the leg of your partner or their back, or playing with their face, like stroking their face, reaching out for passionate kisses, lingering in bed for hours. Whereas, if you weren't with a partner, you would be doing something productive. But here you are wasting time in bed, right? Those hormones make us do all these, again, right things, quote unquote, because that's what sex hormones do. They draw us to each other. But when those sex hormones wane, we stop doing those things. We think that just because we're in a relationship and love each other, and because there was that sexual attraction, it's not that we don't need to do these things, but we don't even think about those things at all. And so they go by the wayside. But it's those things, precisely those things, that's what the woman is responding to with her responsive sexual desire. Like I said, the emotional connection, having a partner that is really listening to her, who feels her, who is really curious about her, wanting to really see her. And having that goalless touch and that attention on her body, exquisite attention. These are the three things: emotional connection, touch, and exquisite attention, that are fundamental nutrients for women.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, it's like a vicious cycle almost. It's like there's the hormones that support both people, but it sounds like they compel the man in the relationship to do all these like lovely things. And so as cisgender women, our hormones are giving us an extra boost, but we're also getting all this love, this nourishment, like you say, nutrients of love and connection and presence and care and all of that. And so when that presence and care, it sounds like what you're saying is when that presence and care, when those external, manifestations of his hormones begin to decrease, then we're losing, we're being robbed of the nourishment that we need for our libidos to flourish. It's also an interesting cycle, because in Tantra, we talk about that, how the more a man ejaculates, the more depleted he is. So if a man is not practicing semen retention in these early stages of relationship, he's going to ejaculate himself into exhaustion. And that's also part of the vicious cycle, is now he's freaking tired, and he doesn't want to do all this extra stuff because he's just come 100 times in the last week, right? So it's an interesting kind of vicious cycle that if you understand what's going on, you can implement tools to alter it. But if you don't know what's going on, it's a recipe for disaster.
Absolutely. And it has you feel confused and lost and broken. Again, there's that brokenness piece. Well, and here's another piece to add to this puzzle. So if a man is not practicing Tantra or semen retention, usually he is very quick to orgasm.
Ejaculate,
exactly. And so that usually finishes the journey for the woman. So here she is, she needs, even when she's very sexually active, she needs the time for her body to relax first, then get aroused, and then feel sexual desire. That's actually the journey towards, or the journey of responsive sexual desire. There is the relaxation phase. There is the arousal phase, when the body just starts to, ooh, this feels good. Ooh, I want more. And then that starts to change into, ooh, I want more that's sexual. Ooh, now I want sex. Sexual desire comes after arousal builds. And that's different from spontaneous sexual desire, because spontaneous sexual desire, there's stimulus, desire, arousal, boom, boom, boom. This is relaxation, then starting to get turned on, then starting to up the ante. And now it's like, ooh, I want sex. And I wish I had the visual for this, but if you think of overlaying the man's journey, which is much faster and much more linear, with this long kind of spiraling journey for the woman, they're really missing each other.
Yeah, I can see that.
There she is, right, going through these slow ups and downs. Like, she gets excited and then she rests. She gets excited, then she rests, but she's still moving up progressively. He's already up and he's like, what's wrong with her? Why isn't she up? What's going on? Is she not turned on? Am I not doing a good enough job? I should go faster. I should really get her going. And he's already basically at climax and she's just starting.
Oh my God, yes. That's a source of so much suffering. Right there.
So much suffering and so much internalizing it, like I'm doing something wrong, or there's something wrong with me as a lover.
Yeah, and it's just not understanding our anatomy and physiology is what it boils down to.
Exactly. And not knowing how to convey what we're doing. And, you know, through the nervous system lens and the lens of safety, one of the most unsafe places we can be as a woman is to not be able to voice what's happening to us.
Amen.
And so, like, if we had a voice, if we could say what we need, then we could get what we need and feel safer. But, and again, I wasn't myself there in these situations where I didn't know what was happening to my body. I couldn't say slow down, or I couldn't say this is what I need, or I couldn't say, could you touch me more here? I need more time. That just led me to feel like, okay, I just have to go with the flow. Again, I just have to kind of succumb to this and please him and go with the flow and just override what my body needs. Mostly because I didn't have words to describe what my body needed.
Yeah, and because you didn't really know, right? Not only not having the words, but we're left in a desert of ignorance in terms of our sexuality. And oh my God, of course, that's overriding our body's wisdom is going to destroy our libido. Absolutely. So as you're talking, it's occurring to me that this is why, like, again, I'm thinking of like my relationship with my husband or just some of the other experts in the field as they talk about, it's like making love happens all day long. Like the party is what happens in the bedroom, like the, penis and vagina or finger and anus, whatever, that's the culmination or the climax, so to speak, of everything you've been building all day. So having that compartmentalized, I think this also adds to it, is again, in the West, we have a very compartmentalized approach to sex. Sex is something that happens in the bedrooms on Friday nights and Saturday mornings, and the rest of the time, and sex means it looks like touching, kissing, fucking is what it looks like. And then the rest of the day, we don't touch each other. We don't caress each other. We're not snuggling. It's like a touch desert, like I said, and a love desert. We're not connecting. We're being snarky at each other about the dishes and all that. And then we go to bed and you want to roll over and put your penis inside of me. Right. So like, that sounds like hell. That is awful. There's no, my vagina would be like a steel trap door on it.
Yeah. And precisely also what I said earlier, this is why women's bodies are shutting down.
Yeah.
Because it's starvation. It's starvation of what we need. And then on top of that, performance pressure, right? To show up and to still be excited and perky and all alive and sexy.
So what you're saying is so huge, because there's this misconception in the field that women are starving for sex. that may or may not be true. I think that what you're saying is that what we're starving, what we're yearning for is nourishment. We're yearning for nourishment on the body, heart, soul, spirit, and sex, all of it together. But it's not just, we need to be fucked more. It's we need to be nourished on every level more. And the sexuality can be a part of that or a result of that nourishment. But we have to nourish the heart first.
Exactly. And, the picture that you painted of all the things that are not happening during the day that should be, this is why I'm against this idea of foreplay, because foreplay is like the play before sex. Again, it's the buttering up of the woman to get her ready. And I'm completely against that, which is why I've renamed it and really flipped the concept on its head to say that we need all play. There needs to be play, that connection, that snuggling, touch, caressing, kissing, emotional conversations, right? Emotional connection all the time. We cannot go through the week starving, or like using your analogy, I love it, the desert, right? Yeah. Being in the desert and then expected to just like the desert flower overnight just because you're supposed to have sex on Saturday night. We have to have that connection, the play, the touch, everything during the week, all the time. Well, there's no time off.
And then also, as you're talking, the word play is really clicking my bell, ringing my bells in terms of the nervous system, right? So play is the active aspect of the social engagement system of the autonomic nervous system. And play is necessary for safety. Right. So we always think safety is like, oh, calm and quiet. I need to feel safe and soft lights and soft music. But sometimes safety is being able to spar and to play and have this direct eye-to-eye contact and feel safe in a very activated space, not just a still space.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I love that there's a full spectrum of play, from physical play to emotional play to sexual play to, just being free to do something, to not be constrained, to not be judged, to not think about what you have to do, what you should do, what the criteria are that you need to meet, but just that freedom. And here's also a cool thing about play, and specifically how it impacts men and women. For women, it makes us relax, right? It removes that pressure, that performance pressure. And for men, it's the same thing. When men are at play, they are available to connect emotionally. That's exactly what we need. So it actually happens to be that during play, we both need, or we get what we need to really connect with each other, that men can access more of the emotion, their hearts and their emotionality show up for women, and women during play can open up their sexuality and show up that way. And then like yin and yang, right? We meet each other.
I love that. And play, again, goes back to pleasure, right? It's fun. We enjoy doing it. So again, it's pleasure is medicine.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, I love that. And I love we got that play piece, because that's the thing. Again, all the sex stuff is awesome and educational, informative, and it can be super heavy. And so having this this foundation, as I always talk about, of innocent curiosity, shame-free expression, just being curious and innocent and playing, right? If it's not fun, we're not going to do it. And that's what happens when our libido shut down. It's because at some point sex no longer was fun. And so we no longer want to do it because it's not play anymore.
That's right. It's not play anymore. And it's not something that you're doing out of genuine desire. Yeah. And again, our libidos are smart. If it's not coming from genuine desire, why do it?
Yeah. Yeah. And so it seems like in long-term relationships, part of the thing that gets in the way are these shoulds. Like, you should be having sex 3 times a week. You should be whatever, you should be available for sex whenever your partner wants it. It's all this oppression of the shoulds of what society tells us, and that we've absorbed and is now our reality in terms of what we think sex should look like.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. And of course, it's exacerbated when one partner wants sex more than the other, generally because of their natural makeup. And oftentimes it falls along the lines of men because they're able to access their sexual desire more easily, right? Because it's spontaneous. It looks like they want sex more. And because women, as they start to shut down and want sex less, it looks like they want sex less, even though that may not be objectively how it is, but it starts to fall into that pattern. Then there's also pressure of, well, he's pressuring me, or my partner's pressuring me. And what do I do? It's like a no-win situation. If I say no and really listen to myself, well, that's going to impact the relationship. And if I go with it, then I'm just going to do it out of obligation. And they don't like that either, right? They want me to be full of passion and excitement in bed, not to be just a vegetable in there. So that exacerbates all these issues. And this is where couples get really, really stuck. And they don't know how to get out of this kind of gridlock. They don't know how to communicate. They don't know how to, they start really doing hurtful things to each other, and then they don't know how to heal that. And that's where it gets very, very painful and very kind of like a quagmire. They just got sucked into that.
Yeah. And again, this like downward spiraling, self-fulfilling prophecy that is actually, if we understand what's going on, is I won't say fairly simple, but it's possible to tease it out and work with it and understand what's happening, and then apply methods to support. So is that what you do in your work? Let's talk about your work specifically, because this has been so enlightening. And so yeah, it's been so enlightening in terms of understanding the mechanisms and just like the natural, like the way we respond to desire, how we respond to desire, and what we need in order to maintain that desire. So how do you support couples who are looking to heal that divide, that sexual divide in their relationship?
Thank you for that question. And my approach really is rooted in safety. Safety, relational safety, feeling safe with each other to really say what's going on. Certainly nervous system safety, feeling safe in your own body, feeling relaxed, not on edge, and grounded and regulated on the within yourself. And this is why I take my couples through a journey that is usually at least a year long. Wow. Because we have to really create the building blocks of safety before we do any kind of serious sex work, like sexual learning and having them practice different things. And this is where my approach is really different from so many other sex coaches. I don't just jump in and teach them all these sexual things. They're not ready for it. They're coming in, at least into my practice, so raw, so it's like the death by 1,000 paper cuts. They've had so many of these gridlock situations where they couldn't really communicate what they need and want. They are resentful. They feel like they're broken, or their love is broken. They have so much fear about losing each other that we have to establish that safety. So we spend a fair amount of time in the beginning to do that, to have them feel like, wow, this is my partner again. This isn't an enemy. This isn't like someone who's trying to get something from me in the bedroom, but that they're on the same team and they know how to connect in that safe way.
And that is huge and so profound and so necessary. Are there methods or techniques you use to help instill that sense of safety?
So certainly somatic experiencing and understanding the nervous system and slowing things down. Just like in sex, I slow things down tremendously in my coaching. I assure them we'll get where we need to go, but we need to slow down and we need to build these fundamental blocks. Mm-hmm. And I love Sue Johnson's EFT work, emotionally focused therapy. So really focusing on the emotional connection, helping the couples say, and convey what they really mean and how what's happening impacts them emotionally. It's not that I'm just frustrated at you because you didn't do this or you're doing that. It's that when I see you do that, I go into despair that nothing is going to ever change. And I shut down and I start to see only the negative things, right? Getting to that deep, deep level of what's happening emotionally on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
And teaching them to connect below the surface, below the frustrations, below like, you're doing this, I need this, you're not doing that, to what's actually happening, what's happening in the heart.
Yeah. Yeah. The unmet needs.
The unmet needs.
Yeah.
Exactly. The
Yeah.
unmet emotional needs, feeling important, feeling seen, feeling understood, feeling like your partner is going to be there when you're in distress.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So profound. So how can people get a hold of you to work with you?
So I have a ton of resources and information on my website, which is irenefehr.com. And there is a ton of new articles and old articles, but ton of articles on sex and passion in a long-term relationships and women's libido. I also have a free program, a free 3-video online training called How to Want Sex Again. That's available on the website. And there's of course information on private coaching with me as well.
Yeah. Okay. So you've got a lot of free info, and then you've got info about how to work with you one-on-one to really transform your relationship. So what would be the best resource that you suggest for a couple coming in who loves each other, but is stuck at the libido block and really wants to begin the process of overcoming it? So on your website, what is the best resource that you would recommend for that?
So I would recommend clicking on the banner that takes you to a page where there is actually a video that's specifically geared towards couples. And it's the video on the 3 types of sex and actually why sex dies in a long-term relationship.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
And so it's very eye-opening, and couples tell me all the time they see themselves in the video, they see in how they are where they are, and that gives them a lot of hope, not only because they're not broken, but because they start to get the steps that they need to bring sex and passion back into the relationship. And of course, critically, connection, that emotional connection, that lover connection.
Yeah.
And I recommend watch that video and then click on the consultation button and set up a call with me. So I offer a free 1-hour consultation. And it's the first of actually several steps that I take people who want to work with me through to establish whether we have a good fit and what I can provide for them. So it's again, slowing things down, going through these very important connection steps to really understand each other, and then see what I can do for them and how I can work with
That's
them.
beautiful. I love that, the sounds of that video, the 3 types of sex, and what is it called? The 3 types of sex.
And why sex dies in a long-term relationship.
Man, now that for a title, damn. The 3 types of sex and why yours is dead. Wake up.
Yep. Yep. And even more, when I talk about that in the video, I say that sex naturally dies, expected to die. And that death is actually an opportunity to create the kind of sex that's intentional, that touches upon, like I said, all the nutrients that women need and couples need to make sex and passion sustainable and ever growing, not diminishing, ever growing and fulfilling, ever satisfying. So it's all in there.
Ever evolving, so it never gets bored. Ever evolving, so it never gets bored. I love that, and I love that concept of sex needs to die, but it's not necessarily the sex that needs to die. It's our concept. It's the way we think it should be happening that does need to die in order to birth a new understanding. So I love that. And spell your website URL for us again. IRENE.
F as in Frank, EHR.
Okay, so IRENEFEHR.com.
Perfect.
Yay, awesome. We'll also have on our website and blog. I do this kind of clunky sometimes because some people are just on Spotify driving in the car, and I want them to be able to like on their mobile app.
Perfect.
Get it for you. Well, thank you so much, Irene. It has been a treasure. You're a treasure. It's been a gift, I will say, having you here. And thank you to all of our audience for tuning in once again. This has been eye-opening and mind-expanding, and I've taken notes and gotten some really wonderful, wonderful information, nourishment from our conversation. Tune in next week. Everybody stay connected. Check out Irene. Stay connected with us at Authentic Tantra. And we look forward to seeing you next week. Have an awesome weekend.